Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story is about a man who thought he was protecting his heart, only to destroy something real before it ever had a chance to begin. His name is Marcus Chen. He's 29 years old, from Vancouver, British Columbia, and when he sent me this confession 3 months ago, his opening line was simple. I thought I was being smart. Turns out, I was just being broken. Marcus came to Bangkok with money in the bank and wounds in his chest. He'd cashed out of a cryptocurrency startup for enough to never work again if he didn't want to. Mid-7 figures. The kind of money that changes everything, including how people see you. Or at least, that's what he learned. Because the 2 relationships he had after that exit taught him one lesson louder than any other. When women find out you're wealthy, everything changes. Or maybe, he wondered in his darkest moments, they were never real to begin with. So, he came to Thailand, the land of smiles, cheap living, and fresh starts. He told himself he was there to be a digital nomad, to explore, to reset. But really, he was running. And he brought his paranoia with him like luggage he couldn't check. Before we dive into what happened on that first date, the one that blew up his life in ways he never saw coming, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Have you ever tested someone you cared about? Have you ever been so hurt by your past that you sabotaged your future? If this story resonates, hit that subscribe button. Because Marcus's mistake is one a lot of us make. We just don't always admit it. Now let me hand this over to Marcus. This is his story, in his own words. I landed at Suvarnabhumi Airport on a Tuesday morning in late September. The heat hit me the second I stepped outside, thick and wet like walking into a sauna. Vancouver had been cool and grey when I left, that particular Pacific Northwest drizzle that gets into your bones. Bangkok was the opposite, bright, chaotic. The taxi ride into the city was a blur of concrete overpasses and billboards in Thai script I couldn't read. I remember thinking this place was the perfect spot to disappear. I'd rented a serviced apartment in Phrom Phong, one of those modern high-rises with a pool on the roof and a gym I'd never use. 35,000 baht a month, which sounded expensive until I did the conversion. About 1,500 Canadian for a 1-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city. Back home, that wouldn't even get you a basement suite with a hot plate. But I wasn't telling anyone about the apartment. I wasn't telling anyone about anything. See, here's what you need to understand about me before the money. I was nobody. I mean that in the most literal sense. I graduated from UBC with a computer science degree and mediocre grades. Got a job at a fintech company in Yaletown making 60,000 a year, which in Vancouver meant I lived with 2 roommates and ate instant ramen 4 nights a week. I didn't date much. Too busy, too broke, too boring. I was fine with it. I had my head down, working on a side project nights and weekends, a blockchain application for supply chain verification. I know. Everyone and their dog had a blockchain startup in 2016. But mine actually worked. By the time I was 27, I'd quit my job and gone all in on the company. 80-hour weeks in my studio apartment, surviving on coffee and takeout. My co-founder was a guy named Tej I'd met at a hackathon. He handled the business side, I handled the tech. We got into an accelerator, raised a seed round. Then a Series A. By 28, we had enterprise clients and acquisition offers coming in. We took one. The number had a comma and several zeros. After taxes and splitting it with Tej and our early investors, I walked away with 2.3 million Canadian dollars. I was 28 years old and I had no idea what to do with my life. That's when I met Sarah. She was a marketing coordinator at one of those trendy co-working spaces in Gastown, blonde, pretty, always put together in that specific Vancouver way where it looks effortless but probably took an hour. We started talking at a networking event. I was terrible at small talk, but she laughed at my jokes anyway. She asked me out. That never happened to me. I said yes. For the first month, it was great. We'd get dinner at these casual spots, Vietnamese noodle places in Chinatown, pizza in kits. She was fun, easy to be around. But then somehow she found out about the exit. I don't know how. Maybe Tej mentioned it. Maybe she saw a press release. But suddenly, everything shifted. She wanted to go to expensive restaurants. Asked why we were taking the bus when I could afford an Uber. Started sending me links to luxury condos we should check out together, even though we'd been dating for 6 weeks. When I told her I was trying to be smart with money, invest it properly, not blow it on stupid things, she called me cheap. We were at Hawksworth, this high-end place in the Rosewood Hotel, and the bill came to $400 for 2 people. I didn't complain about the price. I paid it. But I mentioned maybe we could mix in some cheaper spots too. She looked at me like I'd insulted her mother. You have over $2 million and you're worried about a $400 dinner. What's the point of having money if you're going to act broke? One didn't have a good answer. She broke up with me 2 weeks later. Started dating a real estate developer who drove a Porsche Cayenne. I saw them once on Robson Street, her laughing at something he said, wearing a Canada Goose jacket I knew cost $1,000. I went home and felt nothing. That scared me more than the breakup itself. 6 months later, I met Rebecca. She seemed different. She worked at a non-profit doing environmental advocacy, drove a 20-year-old Honda Civic, wore thrift store clothes, and talked about sustainability. She felt real in a way Sarah never had. We dated for 4 months. I thought maybe this was it, you know? Someone who didn't care about the money, someone who liked me for me. Then I overheard a phone call she was having with her friends. She was at my apartment, thought I was in the shower. But I'd come back out to grab my phone. I stood in the hallway and listened to her laugh about me. Oh my God, you guys, I know, his wardrobe is tragic, like Tech Bro meets middle school. But he's a good project, right? Super smart, super sweet. And the money doesn't hurt. I'm thinking once we're more serious, I can start upgrading him. Get him into some actual adult clothes, maybe a decent haircut. I never said anything to her about it. I just got quieter, more distant. When she asked what was wrong, I told her I needed space. She cried, said she loved me. I broke up with her anyway, because I couldn't unhear that word. Project. That's what broke me, I think. Not Sarah, who at least was honest about wanting the lifestyle, but Rebecca, who I thought was different, who I thought saw me. Turns out she did see me. She saw a fixer-upper with a good return on investment. I spent the next 3 months alone in my apartment, working remotely on some consulting projects, not really seeing anyone. My friends would text me to go out, and I'd make excuses. My mom called from Richmond, worried I was depressed. Maybe I was. Mostly I was angry. Angry at Sarah and Rebecca, sure. But angrier at myself for being stupid enough to trust them, for not seeing what was obvious in hindsight. That money changes how people see you. That you can never really know if someone likes you or likes what you can do for them. That's when I bought the ticket to Bangkok. I'd never been to Thailand. I'd barely travelled at all, to be honest. But I'd seen the YouTube videos, read the blogs. Cheap cost of living, great food, beautiful beaches, friendly people, and lots and lots of other foreigners doing the digital nomad thing. I figured I could blend in, start over, meet people who didn't know my history. But here's the thing I didn't realise until later. You can change your location, but you can't change your head. And I brought every bit of my paranoia with me on that flight. The first 2 months in Bangkok, I barely talked to anyone. I'd work from my apartment, go to the gym, eat street food alone. The city was incredible. Overwhelming, nothing like Vancouver. But I kept my distance. I didn't want to get involved with the expat scene because everyone there seemed to have an angle. Guys running lifestyle businesses that were probably borderline scams, women who seemed professionally social, everyone networking and pitching and trying to sell you something. It felt fake. So I stayed away. But the loneliness got to me. I'm not going to lie about that. There's only so many nights you can eat pad crap hour alone in your apartment before you start wondering what the point of any of it is. So I started going to this co-working space in Sukhumvit, near BTS Asok. It was called something like Hub Space or Work Hub, one of those generic names. Big open floor plan, decent Wi-Fi, coffee that didn't taste like burnt rubber. I'd go a few afternoons a week just to be around other people, even if I wasn't talking to them. That's where I met her. It was a Thursday, early November. The rainy season was ending, and the air had that particular post-rain smell, clean and heavy. I was working at a table near the windows when my laptop charger died. Just completely stopped working. I didn't have a spare. I was in the middle of debugging a contract for a client and starting to panic when someone behind me said in English, "You need a charger." I turned around. She was sitting at the next table, a MacBook in front of her, papers spread out everywhere. She was Thai, probably late 20s, with long dark hair pulled into a ponytail and this effortless style that wasn't trying too hard. Simple black t-shirt, jeans, minimal jewelry, and she was holding up her own charger with this half smile like she could tell I was about 5 minutes from a meltdown. "I mean, if you don't mind," I said. "I'll be quick." She laughed. "Take your time. I'm here for another hour at least." Her name was Ploy. Full name Ploy Siriporn. She worked in digital marketing for a Thai e-commerce company, one of the big ones that was competing with Lazada and Shopee. We started talking while my laptop charged, and the conversation just flowed in this easy way I hadn't experienced in months. She asked what I did. I told her I was in tech, did consulting work remotely, which was true, just incomplete. She told me about a nightmare client she was dealing with, someone who wanted a full social media rebrand but wouldn't give her any budget or creative freedom. I told her about the joys of debugging someone else's code when they documented nothing and used variable names like X and data too. We laughed. It felt normal. God, it felt so normal. She helped me figure out how to reload my BTS card at the machine downstairs. I'd been using cash every time like an idiot because I couldn't make sense of the Thai instructions. She showed me you could switch it to English. We got coffee from the little cafe on the ground floor. She ordered in Thai but spoke to me in English, and her English was perfect, neutral accent, obviously educated. I later found out she had a master's degree from Chulalongkorn University, one of the top schools in Thailand. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about growing up in Bangkok, how the city had changed since she was a kid, more expensive now, more crowded. She lived alone in a condo near Ari, a neighbourhood I'd never been to. She'd been working in marketing for 5 years, wanted to start her own agency eventually, but was building skills and saving money first. She'd never dated a foreigner, found the whole expat scene kind of exhausting if she was being honest. Too many people who came to Thailand thinking everything would be easy and exotic, not realising it was just life with different street signs. I should have relaxed. I should have just enjoyed meeting someone interesting who I clicked with. But I couldn't. Because sitting there, watching her smile at something I said, I felt the paranoia creep in. She was too perfect, too friendly, too interested in me. Vancouver Marcus would have taken it at face value. Bangkok Marcus, the one who'd been burned twice and crossed an ocean to get away from it, immediately started looking for the angle. Did she know who I was? Had she looked me up? The co-founder of my startup had a pretty public profile. If she Googled my name, she'd find articles, press releases, my LinkedIn. She'd know about the exit. Maybe that's why she was being so nice. Or maybe I was crazy. Maybe she was just a person being friendly to another person at a co-working space. But I couldn't tell anymore. That was the problem. I'd lost the ability to tell the difference between genuine interest and calculated strategy. When we were packing up to leave, she said, "Hey, we should get coffee sometime, if you want." And I said yes. Of course I said yes. But the second the word left my mouth, I made a decision that I would regret for months to come. I was going to test her. Not some elaborate scheme, nothing cruel, just a simple experiment. I would pretend to be broke. Or, not broke exactly, but struggling. Just another English teacher or freelancer barely making it in Bangkok. If she was interested in me for me, she'd stick around. If she was like Sarah, like Rebecca, like every other woman who looked at me differently after they found out about the money, she'd disappear. And I'd know. I'd finally know before I got in too deep. It felt logical, protective. Smart, even. I told myself I was just being careful. I was learning from my mistakes. I wasn't going to be anyone's project or ATM or fixer-upper ever again. I didn't realise I was building a bomb I'd have to defuse later. Or that the explosion would take out the one genuine thing I'd found in months. That night, I lay in my apartment staring at the ceiling, the Bangkok lights filtering through the windows, and I rehearsed my lies. The hostel with bedbugs in Ram Khamhaeng, the 2 teaching jobs that barely covered rent, the money problems back home. I practiced my expressions in the bathroom mirror. Embarrassed, humble, broke. I imagined her reactions, the disappointment, the excuses. The slow fade after she realised I had nothing to offer, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that maybe this was a bad idea, that maybe I was creating the exact situation I was afraid of, that maybe Ploy was just Ploy, and I was the one making it complicated. But I ignored that voice. I'd ignored it before and gotten hurt. This time, I told myself, I was in control. I messaged her the next morning and we set up our date for Saturday evening. She suggested meeting at BTS Thong Lo. There's a night market near there, she wrote, and some good street food if you're hungry. Perfect, I wrote back. See you at 7. I put my phone down and felt my chest tighten with something that wasn't excitement. It was dread mixed with determination. I was going to find out who Ploy really was. I was going to protect myself this time. I just had no idea what it was going to cost. Saturday arrived, and I spent the entire afternoon second-guessing everything. What to wear, how much cash to bring, whether I should cancel and just delete her number and forget the whole thing. But I didn't cancel. At 6:30, I left my apartment in Phrom Phong and took the BTS 2 stops to Thong Lo, carrying exactly 800 baht in my wallet like I actually needed to budget. She was waiting near exit 3 when I got there, leaning against the railing, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I called her name and smiled, and something in my chest twisted. She was wearing a simple sundress, light blue with small white flowers and sandals. Her hair was down, just a bit of mascara, no heavy makeup. She looked like someone heading out for a casual evening with a friend, not someone dressed to impress. I didn't know if that was good or bad. Was she not trying because she didn't care? Or was she not trying because she was confident enough not to? I was already analysing her before we'd even said hello. Hey, she said, pushing off the railing. You found it okay? Yeah, I said. The BTS makes everything pretty easy. We started walking. Thong Lo on a Saturday evening was packed. Street vendors selling grilled meat on skewers, families out for dinner, groups of expats bar hopping. The sun was setting and the light had that golden quality that makes everything look softer than it is. Ploy walked beside me, and we fell into conversation easily, just like we had at the co-working space. She asked how my week had been. I told her about a client project that was driving me crazy, which was true. She told me about her nightmare client again, the one who kept changing their mind about brand colours and wanted everything done yesterday. We walked past a row of restaurants with outdoor seating, the smell of grilling fish and chili paste thick in the air. She pointed out a gallery she liked, a tiny second-hand bookstore with English and Thai titles mixed together in the window display. She told me about growing up in this part of the city before it got so developed, when there were still empty lots and small wooden houses instead of high-rise condos. She wasn't performing, wasn't trying to be charming, she was just talking, being a person. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. So, she said, after we'd walked for maybe 15 minutes, you mentioned you're doing tech consulting. What brought you to Bangkok? This was it. The moment I'd been rehearsing, I took a breath and delivered my lie. Honestly, I needed a change. I was teaching English back in Vancouver, barely making rent. I'd studied computer science in university, but couldn't land a decent job in the field. The tech market in Vancouver is brutal if you don't have the right connections. So I figured, why not try teaching abroad, you know? I've been here about 2 months, living in a hostel out in Ramkhamhaeng. Not glamorous, but it's cheap. I'm doing some freelance coding work on the side to supplement the teaching income, trying to figure out if this is sustainable long term or if I'll need to head back home. I watched her face. She nodded, looking thoughtful. No disappointment. No pity either. Just listening. That sounds stressful, she said, teaching and freelancing at the same time. That's a lot. Yeah, I said, it's a lot. But I don't have much choice right now. I'm sending money back to help my mum with some bills. She's not doing great financially. That last part wasn't even true. My mum was fine. She'd divorced my dad years ago, remarried a guy who ran a successful contracting business, lived in a nice house in Richmond. She didn't need my money. But it sounded noble, didn't it? It made me sound like a good son instead of just broke. Ploy made a sympathetic sound. Family stuff is hard. I lived with my parents until I was 25 to save up enough to move out on my own. Bangkok rent is expensive if you want to live anywhere decent. My friends all thought I was crazy for staying home so long, but I'm glad I did. It gave me a cushion, you know? Financial independence is important. I felt a small flutter of something. Relief, maybe. She wasn't judging me, she was relating. But then the paranoid voice kicked in. Of course she's relating. That's what someone does when they're trying to make you comfortable, when they're playing the long game. We kept walking, and she asked if I'd eaten yet. I told her I hadn't. She suggested a place she liked nearby, a a small restaurant that specialized in northeastern Thai food. Isan cuisine, she called it. Then she paused, like she was second-guessing herself. Actually, I don't know if that's your thing. Is Thai food okay, or would you prefer something else? There's a burger place around the corner if you want. No, I said quickly. Thai food is great. I love it. She smiled. Okay, good. Because this place is really local, really casual. I'm not taking you anywhere fancy, I promise. We turned down a side street, and she led me to a spot with plastic tables and chairs set up on the sidewalk. No tourists. Just Thai families and a few older men drinking beer and watching a football match on a small TV mounted to the wall. The menu was entirely in Thai. Ploy ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted, and I was weirdly grateful. She got som tam, lab mu, sticky rice, and 2 bottles of water. The food came quickly, served on chip plates with a pile of fresh vegetables on the side. It was delicious. Spicy enough to make my eyes water, but in a good way. Ploy showed me how to eat the sticky rice properly, rolling it into a small ball with your fingers and using it to scoop the lard. She laughed when I fumbled it, and rice fell into my lap. You'll get the hang of it, she said. Take to practice. We ate and talked, and for maybe 20 minutes I forgot I was supposed to be testing her. The food was too good. The evening was too warm. She was too easy to talk to. She told me about a trip she'd taken to Chiang Mai last year with friends, how they'd rented motorbikes and gotten lost in the mountains and ended up at this tiny village where an old woman fed them homemade curry and wouldn't accept payment. She told me about her work dreams, how she wanted to start her own digital marketing agency, but was scared to leave the stability of her current job. She asked about my coding work, what languages I used, what kind of projects I enjoyed most. She actually understood what I was talking about when I mentioned Python and JavaScript frameworks. She wasn't just nodding politely. When the bill came, it was 180 baht total, about $8 for both of us. I grabbed it before she could, pulled out my wallet, and made a whole show of counting out the exact bills. 100 baht note, then a 50, then 3 tens. I laid them on the small plastic tray deliberately, like someone who had to think about whether they could afford an extra drink. Ploy didn't comment. She just said thank you, and we stood up to leave. We walked some more, no destination, just wandering. The street market she'd mentioned was in full swing now, vendors selling everything from knockoff designer bags to fried insects on sticks. The energy was chaotic and alive, and I felt myself starting to relax despite everything. That was dangerous. That meant the test wasn't working. She was supposed to have shown her hand by now, wasn't she? Do you want to see something? She asked. It's not far. Sure, I said. She led me through a series of smaller streets until we arrived at a temple. It was small, nothing like Wat Pho or the other tourist attractions. The walls were painted white and gold, and there were offerings of flowers and incense at the entrance. A few people were inside praying. We took off our shoes and went in. The air smelled like jasmine and smoke. This is my favourite temple in Bangkok, Ploy said quietly. Nobody really comes here except locals. It's peaceful. We sat on a bench in the courtyard outside. Evening had fully settled in now, and the sky was dark purple, the temple lights casting long shadows across the stone floor. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing traditional Thai music, the sound drifting over the walls. Ploy was quiet for a moment. Then she started talking. She told me about her previous relationship, a Thai guy named Kuhn, short for something longer I didn't catch. He worked in finance, made good money, came from a wealthy family. They dated for 2 years. At first it was great, but slowly he started trying to control everything, criticized her career choices, said marketing was a waste of her intelligence, wanted her to quit and be available for his schedule, wanted her to dress differently, act differently. She felt like a project he was trying to perfect. When she finally broke up with him a year ago, his family was furious. They'd already been planning the wedding. I didn't know what to say to that. The word project hung in the air between us. And I thought about Rebecca, about being a good project, about upgrading me. My throat felt tight. I'm sorry, I managed. That sounds awful. She shrugged. It taught me something, though. I'd rather be alone than be someone's improvement plan. I want someone who sees me as I am and likes that, not someone who sees potential and wants to unlock it. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt something crack inside. This was real. This was a real person sitting next to me, someone who'd been hurt and was trying to be careful and open at the same time. And I was lying to her. I was testing her. I was treating her exactly like the thing she was trying to avoid. But even as I felt that crack, the voice in my head was still there, whispering, maybe this is part of the game. Maybe she's telling you this story to manipulate you. Maybe she wants you to feel like you're the same, like you understand each other. That's how good con artists work, right? They make you think you're both outsiders, both damaged, both looking for something real. I hated that voice, but I couldn't turn it off. We left the temple and started walking back toward the BTS. It was getting late, close to 10. The streets were still busy, but the energy had shifted. Less families and more young people heading to bars and clubs. Ploy was talking about a pottery class she'd signed up for, how terrible she was at it, but how therapeutic it felt to work with her hands after staring at screens all day. Then she said, "Hey, do you want to get dessert? There's this cafe I love near Thong Lo Station. They have the best mango sticky rice." And just like that, everything changed. The cafe she meant, I knew it. I'd walked past it a dozen times. It was nice. Really nice. Modern interior, mood lighting, desserts displayed in a glass case like jewelry. The kind of place where drinks cost 300 baht minimum. Way out of range for someone living in a hostel and teaching English to make rent. My paranoia exploded like a bomb. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. She'd been patient all night, playing along with the street food and the simple walk and the local temple. But now she was done with the poverty tourism. Now she wanted to go somewhere that cost actual money. She was testing me, seeing if I'd been lying about being broke, or maybe she was setting expectations, showing me what I should be spending on her if I wanted this to continue. My jaw tightened. I felt my whole body go rigid. "I told you I'm on a tight budget," I said. My voice came out cold. She looked confused. "What? The cafe you're talking about? That place is expensive." "Oh," she said. She looked uncertain now, thrown off by my tone. "I mean, it's not that expensive. It's like 300 baht for 2 desserts and drinks. But if you don't want to, that's fine. We can skip it." 300 baht. She said it like it was nothing, like it was pocket change. And maybe to her it was. She had a good job, her own condo, probably made decent money, but she knew I was struggling, or at least she thought I was. And she was suggesting we spend 300 baht on dessert anyway. "I can't afford that," I said flatly. She blinked. "Okay, that's okay. We don't have to go." But I was spiraling now, couldn't stop myself. "Look, it's fine. You can treat us. I'm sure you got your bonus or whatever. But I don't need your charity." Her face changed. The warmth I'd seen all evening drained away like water down a sink. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "What are you talking about?" she said quietly. "I'm talking about reality," I said. The heat was rising in my chest now, part anger and part something else. One couldn't name. Panic, maybe. "I told you my situation. I told you I'm barely making it work here, and you want to go to some upscale cafe and spend money I don't have. I'm not who you think I am, Ploy. I can't afford your lifestyle. Maybe we're not compatible." The words came out harsher than I meant them to. I watched her face and waited for the anger, the defensiveness, the reveal that I was right, that this whole thing had been a setup. But she didn't get angry. She just looked sad, disappointed. Like she'd made a mistake trusting me. "Marcus," she said slowly, "I just wanted to get mango sticky rice with you. That's all. It's my favourite dessert. I wanted to share it with you. I wasn't trying to make you spend money. I offered to pay." "You're trying to show me what I should be spending on you," I said. "Setting expectations." She stood up. We were still on the sidewalk, people walking around us, the noise of Bangkok at night washing over everything. She slung her bag over her shoulder and looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were shiny, but she wasn't crying. She just looked tired. "I thought you were different," she said quietly. "I thought you saw me as a person, not whatever this is in your head, not some gold digger or social climber or whatever you're imagining. Just me. A person who enjoyed talking to you and wanted to have dessert with you." She took a step back. "I hope you figure out whatever you're dealing with, Marcus. I really do. Because this isn't about money. This isn't about a cafe or street food or any of it. This is about you deciding I'm guilty of something before I even had a chance to prove I'm not." She turned and walked away. I watched her weave through the crowd toward the BTS station, her blue sundress disappearing into the sea of people. I stood there on the sidewalk, frozen. waiting to feel vindicated, waiting to feel right, waiting to feel like I'd protected myself. But I didn't feel any of those things. I felt hollow, like I'd just thrown something valuable into a fire and watched it burn. The triumph I expected never came. The relief that I'd exposed her didn't arrive. Instead, there was just this creeping, horrible dread spreading through my chest. The kind of dread that comes when you realize you've made a catastrophic mistake, but it's too late to take it back. I replayed the whole evening in my head. The easy conversation, the street food, the temple, her story about her ex, the way she'd laughed when I fumbled the sticky rice, the way she'd offered to pay for dessert without making it a thing. And I saw it differently now. Without the paranoid filter, without the test. She'd just been on a date. A normal date with someone she liked. And I'd treated her like a criminal in an interrogation. I sat down on the curb, right there on the street, and put my head in my hands. A tuk-tuk driver shouted at me to move. A group of drunk expats stumbled past laughing. The city kept moving around me like it always does, indifferent to personal disasters. I'd come to Bangkok to escape women who wanted my money. And I'd just destroyed something real because I was so convinced it was fake. The worst part, one couldn't even tell her the truth. I couldn't chase after her and say, "Wait, I'm not actually broke, I have money, I was testing you and you passed." Because that would make it worse, wouldn't it? That would prove I was exactly what she'd accused me of. Someone who looked at her and saw a villain before she could prove she was just human. I sat there for a long time. Long enough for my legs to cramp. Long enough for the street vendors to start packing up their carts. Long enough to understand that I hadn't left my damage in Vancouver. I brought it with me, and it had just cost me the first real thing I'd found in months. Eventually I stood up and walked to the BTS. I rode back to Phrom Phong alone, went up to my expensive apartment with the view and the pool, lay on my bed in the dark and stared at the ceiling and thought about mango sticky rice at a cafe I'd never go to, with someone who'd never ask me again. The first week after that night, I didn't leave my apartment except to get food. I ordered delivery most of the time. Pad krapao from restaurants with names I couldn't pronounce, delivered by teenagers on motorbikes who handed me plastic bags and disappeared back into traffic. I'd eat alone at my dining table that cost more than most people's monthly rent and feel absolutely nothing. But that's not true. I felt something. I felt like I was going insane. I couldn't stop replaying the date. Every conversation, every moment, every expression on her face. And the more I replayed it, the more I saw it differently. The way she'd laughed when I fumbled the sticky rice, genuine and warm, not mocking. The way she'd shared her story about her ex, vulnerable and honest, not manipulative. The way she'd offered to pay for dessert, casual and thoughtful, not testing me or setting expectations. Just a person who liked mango sticky rice and wanted to share it with someone she was enjoying spending time with. I'd seen malice where there was only kindness. I'd seen strategy where there was only spontaneity. I'd created a villain out of someone whose only crime was being nice to me. On day 3, I broke and looked at her Instagram. She hadn't blocked me. Her profile was public, tastefully curated, but not overly filtered. Photos of her at work events, coffee shops, art galleries. Pictures with friends at restaurants, laughing at inside jokes I'd never understand. A photo from the pottery class she'd mentioned, her hands covered in clay, grinning at the camera. She looked happy. She looked like someone living their life, not hunting for foreign men with money. I scrolled back through months of posts, no pattern of dating foreigners, no photos at expensive clubs or designer shopping. Just a normal person with a normal life. Work, friends, hobbies, family dinners. There was a photo from 6 months ago of her with an older couple, her parents probably, at what looked like a birthday celebration. The caption was in Thai, but the love was obvious. I felt sick. I went back to the co-working space the following Tuesday, hoping to run into her, hoping for a chance to apologize, explain, something. But she wasn't there. I asked the staff casually if they'd seen Ploy. The girl at the front desk, who barely looked up from her phone, said, "Ploy mostly worked from home. She only came in sometimes when friends were visiting from other cities. To that first day I met her, she'd only been there by chance. Probably meeting a friend, and she'd offered me her charger and we'd started talking and it had been organic, accidental, real. She hadn't been there scouting for targets. She'd just been living her life and I'd walked into it and exploded it. 2 weeks passed. I tried to work but couldn't focus. I'd stare at my laptop screen, cursor blinking in an empty code editor, and think about the look on her face when I'd accused her. That quiet disappointment, like she'd expected better from me, and realised too late she'd been wrong. I started going to bars in Akamai, places where expats gathered to drink and complain and tell war stories about Thailand. I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. On the Thursday of the third week, I found myself sitting next to an Australian guy named Dave at a craft beer place that served overpriced IPAs. He was maybe 40, had that weathered look of someone who'd been in Bangkok long enough to stop being surprised by anything. We got to talking. I was drunk enough to be honest. I told him the whole story. The money, the ex-girlfriends, the test, the date, the disaster. I waited for him to tell me I'd done the right thing, that I was smart to protect myself, that you can't trust anyone in this city. Instead, he just shook his head. Mate, he said, you sabotaged yourself. I blinked at him. What? You heard me. You played a game she didn't even know was happening. And you're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself because you lost. I felt defensive. You don't understand. I've been burned before, twice. I was just being careful. No, Dave said, taking a long drink of his beer. You were being paranoid. There's a difference. Being careful is taking things slow, watching for red flags, protecting your boundaries. What you did? That's sabotage. You created a fake version of yourself and then blamed her for not seeing through it. She would have left when she found out the truth anyway, I said. Maybe. Maybe not. But you didn't give her the chance, did you? You decided for her. You decided she was like your exes before she could prove otherwise. And now you're alone, and she's out there living her life, and you're the one who made that happen. He ordered another beer. The bar was loud, filled with the usual mix of expats and tourists and young Thai professionals. I watched the bartender pour the drinks and felt something sharp in my chest. You know what's fucked up, Dave said. Ploy's legit. I know her, actually. Friend of a friend. Works hard, has her own life, never dated a foreigner before as far as I know. She's not one of these girls hanging around Nana trying to catch a rich boyfriend. She's just a regular person, and you treated her like a criminal. How do you know her? I asked. Bangkok's not as big as you think. The professional circles overlap. I heard about your date, actually. She mentioned it to a mutual friend. Didn't trash you or anything. Just said she'd met a guy who seemed sweet but turned out to have a lot of issues he was working through. That's how she described it. Issues he was working through. I wanted to disappear into the floor. Dave clapped me on the shoulder, not unkindly. Look, man, I get it. This city messes with your head. Everyone's got an agenda, everyone's running a scheme, everyone's selling something. But sometimes people are just people. And if you can't tell the difference anymore, that's a you problem, not a them problem. He left after that, paid his tab, and walked out into the Bangkok night. I sat there alone with my expensive beer, and my expensive apartment, and my expensive, self-inflicted loneliness. 5 weeks after the date, my phone buzzed with a message notification. I was lying in bed, doom-scrolling through news articles I wasn't reading. I almost dismissed it. Then I saw the name, Ploy. My heart stopped. The message was simple. Hey Marcus, I've been thinking about that night and it's been bothering me. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? Just to talk, no expectations. I think there was something you weren't telling me and I'd like to understand. I stared at my phone for a full minute. My hands were shaking. This was a second chance, an opening, a possibility I didn't deserve but was being handed anyway. I wrote back immediately. Yes, absolutely. When? We agreed on Saturday afternoon, neutral territory. A Starbucks in Siam Paragon, the big shopping mall near the centre of the city. Public, safe, non-romantic. Just two people talking. I barely slept the night before. I rehearsed 1,000 different ways to explain myself. To apologise. To make her understand without making excuses. I changed my shirt 3 times before leaving. I arrived 15 minutes early and ordered a coffee I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. She showed up exactly on time. She looked different than she had that night, more guarded. She was wearing jeans and a simple black top, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked like someone who'd built walls since the last time I saw her and wasn't sure yet if she should take them down. We sat across from each other at a small table near the window. The mall noise filtered in, announcements in Thai, pop music, the general chaos of a Saturday afternoon in Bangkok. She ordered a green tea latte. We made small talk for maybe 30 seconds before she cut through it. So, she said, What happened that night? I took a breath. There was no point in lying anymore. I'd already destroyed everything that lying could destroy. I wasn't honest with you, I said, about who I am, what I do, my situation. She nodded slowly, like this confirmed something she'd suspected. Okay, so what's the truth? The truth spilled out. Not everything, not the exact numbers, but enough. I told her about the startup, the exit, being financially comfortable. I told her about Sarah and Rebecca, about being burned by people who changed when they found out about money, about coming to Bangkok paranoid and damaged and convinced everyone had an agenda, about deciding to test her by pretending to be broke, about watching her all night for signs of disappointment or manipulation, about seeing malice in her suggestion to get dessert. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. She stirred her latte with the little wooden stick, watching the foam swirl. Around us, families walked past with shopping bags. Teenagers took selfies. The world moved on indifferent to whatever was happening at our small table. So you lied to me, she said finally, because you thought I was lying to you? I wasn't lying exactly, I started to say, but she cut me off. You told me you lived in a hostel with bedbugs. You told me you were barely making rent. You told me you were sending money to your mum. Were any of those things true? My silence was answer enough. She nodded, took a sip of her tea, set it down carefully. I get that you've been hurt, Marcus. I really do. Your ex-girlfriends sound terrible. What they did to you wasn't okay. But you know what you did to me? You made me feel like the kind of person who would only value someone for their money. You looked at me and decided I was guilty before I could even prove I wasn't. That's not protection. That's not being careful. That's just mean. The word hung between us. Mean. Not strategic. Not smart. Mean. I wanted to know the real you, I said weakly. The real me was sitting right there, she said. The whole time. I was exactly who I am. I told you about my job, my life, my ex, my dreams, my favorite temple. I showed up as myself. But you? I never met the real you. I met whoever you thought would prove I was fake. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. So who are you really, Marcus? Where do you actually live? I told her. The service department in Phnom Penh, the consulting work that paid well, the comfortable financial situation. She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When I finished, she was quiet again. Then she said, so the whole time we were eating 80-baht street food, you were what? Watching me? Scoring me? Seeing if I'd complain? I wanted to know if you'd like me without the money, I said. But I did like you without the money, she said. Or at least I thought I did. I liked the person I thought I was talking to. Someone real. Someone honest. Someone who was figuring out life and struggling a bit but handling it. That person doesn't exist. You made him up. I felt my throat tighten. I'm sorry, I said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. I was wrong. I was scared and paranoid, and I took it out on you, and you didn't deserve any of it. She looked at me for a long moment. I could see her processing, weighing something in her head. Can we try again? I asked. Real this time. No lies, no tests. Just me and you, and whatever this could be. Ploy took another sip of her tea. Set it down. Folded her hands on the table. I don't know, she said quietly. Maybe. But here's the thing, Marcus. You have to do the work first. You have to figure out why you're so determined to believe the worst about people. Especially women. Especially here. Because if you don't, it won't matter if I give you another chance. You'll just find a new reason not to trust me. You'll test me again, just in a different way. And I can't build something real with someone who's constantly waiting for me to reveal myself as the villain in their story. What work? I asked. Therapy, she said bluntly. Actual therapy. Deal with your stuff from Vancouver, from your exes, from whatever happened in your life that made you think love is a trap and kindness is manipulation. Because right now, you're not ready for a relationship. With me or anyone else, you're too busy fighting ghosts. She stood up, gathered her bag. I'm not saying never, she said. I'm saying not now. Fix yourself first. And if you do, if you really do the work and become someone who can trust people again, then maybe we can try being friends and see what happens. But I can't be your test. I can't be your proof that not all women are terrible. That's too much pressure, and I don't owe you that. She left. Walked out of the Starbucks and into the mall crowds and disappeared again. But this time felt different. This time didn't feel final. It felt like a door closing but not locking, like she'd left a window open somewhere if I was willing to climb through it. I sat there for another hour, finished my cold coffee, watched people shop and laugh and live their lives, and I thought about what she'd said, about doing the work, about fighting ghosts, about being too broken to build anything real. She was right. Of course she was right. I'd spent so much energy protecting myself from getting hurt again that I'd hurt someone else instead, someone who didn't deserve it, someone who just wanted to eat mango sticky rice with a person she liked. I pulled out my phone and Googled therapists in Bangkok who spoke English, made an appointment for the following week. It felt small and insufficient, but it was something. A start. That's where Marcus's story should end for now, with him sitting in a Starbucks in Siam Paragon, coffee cold, mall noise loud, finally understanding what he'd done and what he needed to do differently. But there's an epilogue I need to share with you. Because this is Bargirl Baddies and we tell the whole truth here, even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus sent me this story 3 months after that coffee shop conversation. In his email, he told me he'd been going to therapy twice a week, working through the damage from his past relationships, the trust issues, the way he'd weaponized his pain. He said it was hard, that some sessions left him feeling worse before they got better. But he was doing it. He also told me that Ploy started dating someone else, a Thai guy named Sum who worked as a graphic designer. She posted about him sometimes, casual photos of them at art exhibitions and weekend markets and the beach. Marcus said it hurt to see, but also helped in a strange way. It proved she wasn't waiting for him, that she'd meant what she said, not never, but not now, and not now had become not anymore because he'd waited too long and she'd moved on. He still saw her posts sometimes, watched her build a life that could have included him if he'd just shown up as himself that first night. If he'd been brave enough to be honest and let her make her own choice about whether his money mattered. But he hadn't. He played a game she didn't know they were playing, and he'd lost something real because he was so convinced it was fake. Here's what I want you to understand. Marcus came to Thailand thinking he was escaping his problems, new city, new start, new possibilities. But you can't outrun yourself. Geography doesn't heal trauma. A plane ticket doesn't fix broken trust. He brought everything he was trying to escape with him in his mental baggage, and it poisoned the first genuine thing he found. The cautionary tale here isn't about dating in Thailand. It's not about bar girls or gold diggers or any of the usual stories we tell ourselves about this place. It's about what happens when you let pain from your past destroy possibilities in your present. Marcus thought he was being smart, strategic, protected. Really, he was just scared. Terrified, actually. So terrified of being hurt again that he hurt someone else first. Preemptively, defensively, mean. And sometimes the thing we're most afraid of, being alone, is exactly what our fear creates. Marcus was afraid of being used for his money. So he hid his money, and in hiding it, he hid himself. And Ploy, who might have liked the real him, money and all, never got the chance to decide. He decided for her. He played God with her agency and then blamed her for failing a test she didn't know she was taking. If you're in Bangkok or Pattaya or Chiang Mai or anywhere else running from something back home, remember this. The paradise you're looking for isn't a place. It's not cheaper rent and better weather and easier living. It's a version of yourself that isn't broken anymore, that can trust without testing, that can be vulnerable without immediately building walls, that can accept kindness without assuming it's manipulation. Marcus is still in Bangkok, still going to therapy, still working on himself. He messaged me last week to say he went on a date with someone new, someone he met at a bookstore. He said he was honest from the beginning, told her about his situation, his work, his past. He said it was terrifying, but she didn't run. They're taking it slow. He's learning to trust the process instead of controlling it. And Ploy. She's still in Bangkok too, still working in marketing, still taking pottery classes, still building her life with Som. Marcus said he saw them once at a night market in Ari, walking hand in hand, laughing about something. He almost said hello, but didn't. Let her be happy, he thought. She deserves it. That's the real ending, not a Hollywood reunion, not a redemption arc where everything works out. Just two people who crossed paths and one of them blew it up and they both moved on. Sometimes the lesson isn't about winning someone back. It's about learning from the loss, about becoming someone different so you don't make the same mistake with the next person, about doing the work even when it's hard and uncomfortable and takes months or years and doesn't guarantee a happy ending. If you've ever tested someone you cared about, drop a comment below. Tell me what happened. Did they pass? Did it matter? What did it cost you? And if you're watching this from somewhere in Southeast Asia, running from something back home, ask yourself honestly, did you leave your problems behind or did you pack them in your suitcase? Because that's the real question. That's always the real question. Thanks for watching Bargirl Baddies. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. And maybe, just maybe, take care of each other too.